In 1971, I was 6 years old. John and Yoko were playing on the radio. Ducks were gorging themselves on stale white bread. And I was playing football with my mates. Oh, and my brother was there too. So, what does all this mean? Well, it was a slice of life. It was a slice of park life. And this is the story of the Great British Public Park. Public parks are an integral part of our lives. We all have our favourites, one that's special, full of memories and feels as if it belongs to us. You know the one I mean. But they're also communal spaces where we meet people, and they're great green open spaces that give our cities a much needed breath of fresh air. This is my local park, Clissold Park in Hackney. I remember my first visit here when I was really young. For me, this park sums up the halcyon days of youth. Conkers, football, and then the teenage years when I literally just hung out with my mates. Now it's a place where I bring my own children, Stanley and Connie. It may be a new generation, but I can see them sharing the same thrills, the same slice of park life that I did 30 years ago. Looking at my kids enjoying the freedom to play, I can't imagine what life would be like without green spaces like this. But even in the course of my lifetime, I've noticed our parks are not what they used to be. In this age of the internet, multi-channel TV and video games, I've started to worry about the future of the Great British Public Park. Are they on the road to extinction? Well, this is my journey to revisit these great Victorian creations and see what they have inspired around the world. I want to find people like me, passionate about preserving their own local parks, and give them a chance to explain what their park means to them.
Chris.
And I'll be meeting the next generation of parks apprentices and the most famous park apprentice of all. Looking back, I wonder if I took all this for granted. I want to have great parks for my kids' future, but the public parks have a future. In order to understand parks, you need to understand why they were created in the first place. So who had the brilliant idea of putting a slice of countryside into the middle of our great industrial conurbations? As I researched, one name kept cropping up, the Victorian landscape designer Sir Joseph Paxton. Paxton created the first publicly funded park, which opened in Britain in 1847. And it didn't open in London, but Birkenhead. The first leg of my journey meant a trip to Merseyside. I arranged to meet the award-winning historian Hilary Taylor. An expert on the work of Paxton, I hoped she could tell me more about his amazing vision. What's the philosophy behind a public park? I mean, what did Paxton have to sort of, how did he approach it?
Well, the fascinating thing is it's not just the first public park, it's the first publicly funded public park, and that's what makes it so distinctive. We know that it was a new vision of what a site like this could do in the landscape. And Paxton had already demonstrated that he was very interested in the way, if you like, the public environment can improve people, can benefit people, can make them feel more comfortable. So he was designing for new communities who were perhaps only one generation at most away from the countryside, and then suddenly come in from a town, and it was an alien environment. He wanted to democratise landscape, and that sounds a bit grand, but there's no doubt that he did.
I could see that Paxton's plan was ingenious. The cost of building this park was paid for by selling off land around it for housing.
So this is Paxton's plan of his vision. And in fact, it's almost all just like that still. That's what's so fabulous. But you can see that round the park itself, he envisaged there were going to be all sorts of rather ambitious, grand plots of land with a crescent here and various big terraces and lots of individual houses as well.
And of course, the plots were sold off to raise money for the park.
That's absolutely right. And some of the officers, some of the local authority officers who actually commissioned the park did buy some of those plots themselves and then sold them on to make personal profit. But the idea was that there was ground rent which would support the site in perpetuity. And also, the idea is that the whole of the exterior of the park would be overlooked, if you like, by houses, i.e. by people. It's kind of a modern defensible space notion.
When you walk around the park, you get completely lost.
You do.
I mean, you can't quite work out where's north, south, you know, where you came in and where, you know, which is great.
Yeah.
But at the same time, seeing it in plan, it makes me feel like I know where I am. I can read plans quite well. But what I really loved about his new way of thinking was Paxton's idea to build separate roads within the park, one for pedestrians and another for carriages. Walking through this environment, you're totally lost within your surroundings, a green space hidden away from the outside world. What are the key features that Paxton incorporated into this park?
I think actually you can see just in this very small compass that he has something of everything. We have the lake, which is marvellously designed, so you never know where it's starting, you don't know where it finishes, and on plan it looks like an amoeba. It's extraordinary sort of celebration of promontories and inlets. And then we've got one of his structures, and this was the Swiss Bridge, which was celebrated in lots of contemporary commentaries. And then we have the Roman boathouse, so it's sort of built like a Roman temple. And a lot of the lodges were taken out of, if you like, themes of Old England. This is offering you a picture of the world, a picture of English history, British history, everything that you could enjoy in nature, and celebrating colour in a sort of artistic extravaganza, if you like. You have everything here.
But you make it sound like a theme park, and that's exactly what it isn't. As I walked around Birkenhead, I could see how revolutionary Paxton's blueprint must have been at the time. With 7 different entrances, this literally was a park for the people. Never before had a space like this been designed with more than one person in mind, and Paxton's landscape has stood the test of time. Even today, walking around his park, I keep catching glimpses of areas I'd love to explore. What did this park sort of set off, internationally? I mean, was it that significant?
It was absolutely that significant. This offered a model which really went round the world and is still hugely influential. That's what's so extraordinary about it, really.
I could see how groundbreaking Birkenhead Park had been, but I wanted to know the extent of Paxton's influence. Did his design remain a typically British phenomenon? No, because the next leg of my journey took me 3,500 miles across the Atlantic. Returning to the history books, I discovered that the American landscape architect Frederick Law Olmsted visited Birkenhead in the 1850s. Back in New York, he teamed up with English engineer Calvert Vaux to create one of the urban wonders of the modern world, Central Park, an 843-acre oasis in the heart of Manhattan. What would Paxton have made of all this? I've only been to Central Park once before in my life, when I was 7 years old, and I've got vague childhood memories mixed in with scenes from films that I've seen over the years. Now, this is a serious destination. 25 million people set foot in this park every year, and I can see why. It's the perfect antidote to the crazy world that surrounds it. Central Park took 15 years to build and was opened in 1858. Walking around here, you're overwhelmed by the scale. Everywhere you look, there are people sitting, walking, running, creating their very own slice of park life. But I've travelled over to meet Sarah Cedar Miller, Central Park's own historian. Just as I learned about Paxton at Birkenhead, I now wanted Sarah to share with me Olmsted's vision. Sarah, what were Olmsted and Vaux trying to create here?
What Olmsted and Vaux wanted to do was to create a beautiful place that made you feel that you were out of the city. They wanted people to come and get in touch with nature again, because actually all of the trees in Manhattan, for the most part, had been cut down by the British during the Revolutionary War. So
it's all my fault now.
So yeah. Well, we did fight each other, but it's okay now.
That's behind us.
That's behind us.
We can move on.
That's right. We have been, and so that's what they had to do. They had to move on and build nature. Yeah. So Central Park, of course, is man-made entirely. Nice. And they created a natural environment that was very similar to England in many ways.
Visiting Central Park, it was clear to me that Olmsted had been deeply affected by what he saw at Birkenhead. Just like Paxton, he created a space that was accessible to everyone, 3,500 miles away from its inspiration. There were many social changes taking place in America then, so how timely was Olmsted's plan?
Immigration was happening, the Irish were first coming, Germans also, first wave of immigration, and Americans didn't know what to think about this, these strangers that were coming, as if they weren't originally strange.
A large community was displaced to make way for the park. Nothing stood in its way.
Birkenhead is really the template for Central Park. When Olmsted saw it in 1856 when he came there, he must have taken in all of its elements.
Have you ever been to Birkenhead Park?
No, I'm sorry to say I haven't, but I am coming to England in September and I will definitely be going to Birkenhead.
It's going through a wonderful restoration project at the moment, but I can see the similarities here. You really can pick them out, you know, the roads and the paths and the way they get smaller towards the centre, and the fingers of the lake that just draw you round and draw the eye round and make you want to go there. You know, it's very, very clever. But of course, here it's on a much bigger, grander scale, because that's the way you do it in America.
That is how we do it. Just as you're describing in Birkenhead, in Central Park too, you go from one kind of landscape to another. You cross a bridge, you see a waterfall, you go to a boating lake, and then you're in the woods in an enclosed space. It was a surprise, and it was a moving picture in a time when you moved and the picture stayed the same.
The transverse roads were the unique selling point of the design. 4 main roads run across the park, taking traffic from the east to the west of Manhattan and vice versa. No one else had thought about sinking the roads beneath the park.
What that did was make Central Park, as Olmsted put it, a single unified work of art, so that you were out of the city when you were in Central Park. It really is the prototype of Disneyland, even though a lot of people don't like to think of it that way. It's playful, the design of the park.
And it draws you through it. It pulls you through it.
It absolutely pulls you through it. Even though you think that you're walking in a certain way and you're making choices, they've really designed it so that those choices have already been made for you.
So we all love our parks. It's official. Here in Manhattan, it's no different to back home. I always knew what parks meant to me, but I'm beginning to understand their universal appeal.
I'm probably in the park on a daily basis. Aside from the fact that I can let the dog off the leash in the morning, I use the park for exercise, for recreation, to play some sport, and just to relax. It's a beautiful thing to have in the middle of a big city.
Most people don't have a backyard. Most people don't see grass. If I never came here, I wouldn't see grass at all. So, you know, it's really important. It's part of nature. I'm a human, I'm an animal. So this is something that I need.
Central Park in recent years has had its problems, but there's been a huge concerted effort to get things back on track, and now everything seems to work pretty well here. So far on my journey, the picture of parks looks positive, but I know that public parks in Britain have suffered a serious decline. These fantastic Victorian creations were the object of huge civic pride. Yet during my own lifetime, I've seen facilities disappear, vandalism increase. What I want to know is why it all went so wrong. To find out, I travelled to another great Victorian park, Handsworth Park in Birmingham, currently undergoing restoration and battling back after years of decline. I wanted to meet urban parks expert Alan Barber.
Well, you could go back to the Second World War because they took all the railings out of parks for the war effort, and we know now that it wasn't the war effort, they actually got dumped. But the rot really set in the 1970s, and I think what was happening was that central government was getting more and more dictatorial over how local authorities would spend their money and what they would do, and there's been a sort of steady flow of statutory responsibilities to local authorities, and parks and maintaining parks wasn't one.
So what did we lose? Because obviously we kept the physical space, but within the park, what did we actually lose?
What happened was that they had so much stripped out of them: shelters, playgrounds, paddling pools. Half of the glass houses, the public glass houses the public could enjoy, went. And all this was really quite against the grain with the public. I mean, people were actually justifying this by saying, well, of course, these Victorian glass houses are an anachronism and we don't need them now. So you have to ask, why is it 1 million people troop down to the Eden Project when we build them something really fabulous like that? So there's a lot of excuses made, but what we lost was very real. Shelters went, A third of all the toilets went from the public parks. The statistics are horrifying, and I have to say that although the mood and the tempo, everything is changing a great deal now, and it's rising up the agenda, most of that has not been put back.
So have we got to restore all the parks first before people are going to start coming back? It seems...
Yes. What's wrong with that?
No, I'm not
because it's nothing compared with the gamble that the Victorians
Yeah.
took when they started to create them, and they were certain that what they were doing was right, and they were right.
No, so
We
it's
just
an
want a little-
initial investment.
It is an initial investment, but come on.
Yeah, listen, you're preaching to the converted, you know.
You know.
I'm on your side. I was as frustrated as Alan. Yes, I knew civic pride still existed, but without the proper investment, we as park users are powerless. But Alan had brought me to Handsworth Park, and seeing the love and attention going into the restoration of this green space filled me with hope. I learnt it was just one project partly funded by the Heritage Lottery Fund, which to date has spent over £400 million restoring 275 of the UK's public parks. With extra cash from many local authorities, I felt we were finally taking a step in the right direction. Watching the diversity of people using Handsworth Park, it was apparent how much this space meant to everyone. A large team headed by Hilary Taylor has been working on the park for nearly 2 years, and the restoration is nearing completion. After meeting Hilary at Birkenhead, I decided it was time to catch up with her again right here in Handsworth to find out how you go about restoring a Victorian institution like this.
We've chosen some plants that were available to 19th century designers, including the little lobelia, which is Crystal Palace, and this little chrysanthemum. Most of these plants you actually can find listed on drawings of bedding out, which you find, for example, in the Gardener's Chronicle, without which no contemporary gardener really would have made any headway at all. But we've also used plants which are perhaps slightly more compact in their habits, so we don't have to keep trimming them, because a Victorian gardener would have used scissors to trim these and keep them rather beautiful. And the circular beds are sort of soft mounds of colour, and then the long rectangles are meant to be much spikier and much bolder and much more tropical, because this is also the period of the early subtropical planting where exotic plants were beginning to be introduced.
Seeing how Handsworth was rising from the ashes filled me with hope. But not all parks have been as lucky or as loved as Handsworth. So is there a fundamental key to turning all our parks around? Talking to Alan Barber, it seemed there were some stark choices we needed to make.
I think it's the political system, both nationally and locally, is locked into an economic model which seems to be much keener on spending money to deal with problems rather than solving them. And when parks are a very good way of people staying healthy, of communities mixing together, those things don't come up on the balance sheet nearly as important as spending money on medical services and police and so on. If you let parks and green spaces deteriorate as badly as some of them have got, they actually have a negative effect, and they will encourage vandalism and these problems. So you take your choice. What do you want to do? Do you want to pick up the problems expensively after they've been caused and they've happened, or do you want to invest in something which will actually be of huge economic benefit to society in the longer term? Now, the Victorians, when they created parks, understood that. I mean, everybody says, oh, well, it's a wonderful philanthropic act, and these people have got this great wealth, and so they paid for parks and so on. Well, yes, there was a huge humanitarian movement, but let's be clear. What happened was that the productivity in the factories was going down because people were ill, they were having accidents, and they were spiritually and morally and physically degraded, and parks put that back. So there was an economic model then. They are things for the future. It's not a case of trying to preserve some anachronism from the past. They are the key to the towns and cities of the future.
Alan's words absolutely struck a chord. But there was another aspect of park life that I'd ignored, the great skills base that these wonderful institutions had spawned over the years. Where had they gone? And how vital are they to keeping our gardening skill base alive? I couldn't investigate further without talking to one of my great mates who started his career in a parks department on one of their apprenticeship schemes. Now, Alan, you were an apprentice in a park at Ilkley. What made you want to become an apprentice?
I really wanted to become a gardener as early as possible. So I left school at 15 with one O-level in art, and with kind of sharp intakes of breath and fingers wagging all round, but encouragement from my mum and dad, and strangely enough from the headmaster, who said, no, if he wants to be a gardener, let him, there aren't enough of them, which I thought was, looking back on it, very wise, really, because it's true, there weren't and there still aren't. And my dad said if I was going to do it, I would do it properly. And he knew a man who worked in the Parks Department nursery and said there was a vacancy for an apprentice. Well, I didn't really know what one was, and it meant 5 years of signing your indentures, you know, with this seal on the bottom. It was ever so proper, and I signed it. And I had 4 years there because I went to college a year earlier than my apprenticeship finished, and which is a sadness in a way. It was nice to go to college, but the great sadness was I never got my indentures because I didn't actually work out the 5 years. I only did 4.5.
You dropped out.
I was a dropout. I was a teenage dropout, yeah, late teenage dropout.
And what exact skills did you learn there?
All of them. That was the amazing thing about it. It was in a nursery in Ilkley, a little moorland town in the Yorkshire Dales, in Wharfdale. And we had 14 greenhouses, but we grew everything. We grew, you know, chrysanthemums for the civic ball, all the summer bedding. I used to help take 15,000 geranium cuttings every spring and summer with a sort of channel going down my thumb, black channel from where the knife went. I used to stoke boilers. I was 4'11" when I started working in the nursery. I grew to 5'9" in a year under glass. But I remember bouncing on the end of a poker to get the clinker out of this boiler. And tree planting, it was such an all-round thing. The thing I've always been grateful to my nursery for, my apprenticeship for, my city and guilds, which I took at day release while I was there, was that it was such an all-round course. Everything about growing and looking after plants. And I feel sorry for people now who can't get that comprehensive all-round training.
While you're an apprentice, do you have any specific memories that keep coming back to you?
You know, when you start as a teenager, you think, I can cope with this. And you go through that stage where you're a bit too embarrassed to ask the really obvious questions that you should know the answer to. And there was a moment at which the foreman said to me, I want you to go into this greenhouse here. We were growing carnations for the civic ball. And I want you to disbud these carnations. So I said, right, OK, yeah, do that. He said, you do know how to disbud carnations, don't you? I said, yeah, of course I do, yeah. So I went in there and I thought, disbud, take the buds off. Yeah. So I took all the flower buds off these carnations. And he came back in and said, what have you done? So I disbudded the carnations. He said, disbudding means taking the small side buds off so the one big middle one can grow into a bigger flower. And I looked at this bench of carnations that had not a bud on it, and I always thought, right, OK, I must ask again. We must maintain gardening skills. We must pass them on to the following generations and get them to pass them on as well. Otherwise, every aspect of gardening crumbles because the bottom foundation isn't there.
So is the vital apprenticeship training that Alan spoke of now lost forever? Just as it seemed to be getting hopeless, I heard of a scheme, not in Ilkley, but in Oldham. I hot-footed it to Alexandra Park to find out more. A key factor in the decline of the parks was a shortage of skills through lack of investment. What I mean was there weren't enough good gardeners with sound horticultural knowledge coming through. So I've come to Alexandra Park in Oldham, where they've reintroduced the apprenticeship scheme, not just for the benefit of their parks themselves, but also for the benefit of horticulture in general. I'm not quite sure what I expected to see here, but the whole scheme just took my breath away. Oldham was one of the first local authorities in the UK to reintroduce the scheme, and you can already see the results. I met some of the park staff, Deputy Head Gardener Paul, and 3 apprentice gardeners, Michael, Chris and Andy. The first thing I wanted to know was what young lads like this got out of the jobs.
I like doing the greens because you can stripe them up and it looks really nice afterwards. When you make an area look nice, it's beautiful in it, and outdoors as well. With the sunshine, it's wonderful, yeah.
They are absolutely immaculate, though, aren't they?
Thanks.
I mean, I'd love to kick a football across there, but I don't think you'd be too pleased about that. Do you get people complimenting you on the state of bowling greens?
Yeah, I get a lot of old folks sit on benches watching me for hours.
Do you play bowls at all?
No, I don't play, but I watch them now and again when I have a break from mowing.
Yeah. So how did you end up, you know, being in charge of the bowling greens? Have you been around the whole park through your apprenticeship?
Yeah, through my apprenticeship, I've been everywhere on the park. I've done all aspects of the job, from litter picking to planting, everything really. But I just like mowing the greens. I don't know, there's just something about them.
The bedding here at Alexandra looks amazing, so down by the glass house I met two of the lads responsible for it. How's it going? I'm Joe.
Hey.
Nice to meet you.
Chris.
Hi, Chris.
Andy.
All right, Andy, how's it going?
All right, yeah.
So you're two of the apprentices here.
Yeah.
How long have you been here?
3 years I've been here now.
3 years.
I've been here six.
6 years?
Yeah.
And how many are there of you in total?
We're 6 of us. 6.
There's 6 doing the whole park?
Yeah.
It's a big park.
It is.
So it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
Never a quiet moment.
No, never.
And what's your favourite part of the job here?
Well, I'm going to say the weather, but... no, it's just the park. It's beautiful and all the jobs. Nice variety of jobs to do.
Have you ever been to the park before it was restored?
No, but I've heard about the park, but never went in it because of the reputation it's had, like, so...
What, like it was quite rough?
Yeah, rough park, yeah.
Get beaten up?
Yeah.
Don't walk down there by yourself?
Yeah, everything like that.
So you understand the importance of what you're doing, you know, and you've seen this. I mean, over 6 years, it must have changed a lot, hasn't it?
It has, yeah.
Do you get a lot out of it?
Oh, yeah. So I get a lot of satisfaction when people come up and say, yeah, you've done a good job and that looks well and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's what I love about gardening, is that you visually see, you know, the rewards of all your labour, don't you?
Yeah,
you can see it in front of you.
Yeah.
The apprentices had inspired me, and I wanted to know how the whole scheme had got off the ground. I went to meet Parks manager Steve Smith.
In the mid-90s, Joe, we took a report to council telling them about the poor condition of the parks in Oldham, and part of the strategy the council adopted was, one, to restore the parks and put them in better order because they suffered from decline from the mid-70s. A big part was reintroducing the apprenticeship scheme. There was very little skill and very little succession. A lot of the old gardeners had retired during the late 80s when competitive tendering come in. We had a massive gap of sort of like 15 years where we weren't training people. So this council decided, as well as restoring its parks, to get the apprenticeship schemes going again. I take the view that we take on apprentices and we put them out into the system. Some hopefully will stay in Oldham and continue and come through and take on my job and replace, you know, some of the old ones when we finish. Others have already left and gone on to promotion elsewhere.
This broader view taken at Alexandra is the right attitude and a really good example for other UK councils to follow. Both Steve and Oldham Council are particularly proud of the investment in terms of training local kids. But it's the apprentices' passion for horticulture that's crucial to making the scheme a success.
I think local authorities are very important. I think if you look at most of the people in the industry now, Joe, they came through a park apprenticeship. I think Alan Titchmarsh did an apprenticeship, Roy Lancaster, and it was quite common that you got very, very good training and good grounding through the local authority. And once they stopped, I think it's no coincidence that the industry is suffering a skills shortage. And it's one thing investing large amounts of money in a park, but without the skills and understanding and knowledge coming through to look after it, the decline could take a grip pretty quickly. We've got a management plan for this park now for the next 10 years, and the apprentices are actually versed with that management plan and understand how the design relates to the maintenance, and that's critical. So without the apprenticeship schemes and without continuity and succession of training, this investment in public parks could disappear very, very quickly.
Ultimately, the measure of a park's success lies with the people that use it. John Flannery has been coming into this park for most of his life.
What you see now, there's no relationship to what it used to be before. I only live locally, just a few hundred yards away. It takes me half a minute to come in the park. It's free. People really should come and use it more. At the end of the day, if people haven't got nice things, they don't, you know, their lives, it's poorer, isn't it? They're poorer in themselves. If they've got nice things, they've got a nice place to come and relax, it improves their lives.
I've had a great day here at Alexandra Park. You almost forget what a park's like before you come here. You think it's just grass and trees, but here there's planting, fabulous planting, and there's also people who are going to be able to maintain it into the future too. They are the next generation of our gardeners, and we need them. And hopefully, amongst all of them, they can restore British pride in our parks. However, I still worry about the threat of vandalism to our newly restored parks. What's the point of putting all this money into public parks, making them look beautiful, if they end up destroyed, ravished and covered in graffiti? However much we love these places, how do we stop them being vulnerable to antisocial behaviour? The answer, it seems, may lie back over the Atlantic. In Central Park, they met their problems head-on with the creation of park rangers. They're funded by a non-profit organisation called the Central Park Conservancy, which manages the park in conjunction with the City of New York and the Department of Parks and Recreation. The rangers' powers are much greater than I would ever have imagined.
We are enforcement officers. We have the same powers as the police do as special patrolmen and peace officers. And so we do have the powers of arrest. Our goal in the parks, because we are under our parks commissioner and not the police commissioner, is quality of life. The idea is to make it safe, to protect park and park property, but more important, to make sure that people feel comfortable coming in and using the parks.
Like everyone I've met so far, Sarah shares the belief that parks play a fundamental role in educating children.
If they don't have the experience when they're young, they will never develop a love and an appreciation and even an understanding of the value of green space. I mean, it is a challenge if they don't learn to swim and they don't learn to canoe or kayak. Why would they value the lake? They don't get an opportunity to fish and to understand that this is something that is not only enjoyable but essential for their health and for their well-being and their peace of mind. And so they don't grow up into a voting public that learns to value and appreciate and ask our government to prioritize, particularly in a growing urban sprawl. I mean, as we know, urban environments are the most efficient, and certainly the direction that the world is heading in certainly places like New York and in England. And so if we don't appreciate it, we don't teach our population to appreciate it, government officials will never learn that they should steadily fund it.
Of course, there must be huge political will, but this will always go hand in hand with financial backing.
Oh, I think that Central Park models in many ways what all public parks should be and can be. I think the one element about Central Park, which is a challenge for people in any community, is how do you get steady and secure funding for your park and your park programs. And in a park like Central Park, which is surrounded by some of the most valuable real estate in the world, securing that funding is a little bit less of a challenge. And the organization, the Central Park Conservancy, which has evolved into that role, does a wonderful job. But that opportunity isn't necessarily going to be available to other more local community parks.
The Central Park Rangers are an undisputed success. But what about safety issues in our own British parks? I wanted to find out if there were rangers in this country which could boast the same. There were several success stories, but one in particular caught my eye, St Agnes Park in Bristol. A few years ago, it was very run down, but the passion of the local community combined with the vision and energy of one man has turned things around.
I kind of class myself as a bushman because I grew up in Jamaica, and more thing you just plant. I mean, Jamaica is so naturally, if you spit on it, tomorrow it starts growing.
Constantine Blake is the award-winning parkkeeper here at St Agnes, working to an annual budget of just £16,000. But in the 5 years since he took up his post, Constantine, with help from the local residents, has transformed the park from a no-go area used by local drug dealers to a family-friendly environment where people love to come.
But the first thing I got up and do is to do the litter picking, to make sure that there's no sharps around. When I say sharps, it means needles, buckles, papers, or anything unpleasant around the park. That's what you find in the park at 1:20 time. These are sharps, these are needles, noise. Well, you can find anything at all in the park when you come down. But most of all, these are what I normally picked up and take to the needle bank.
In the past, Constantine collected dozens of needles in any one day. Now all he picks up in the park are leaves.
Leaves, don't talk about leaves. Sometimes we spend all day just scraping leaves up together, and then you come out and there will be more on the ground. So you'll be spending a lot of time. That's a nightmare. That's my least favorite job. My best favorite job is getting dirty. That's my best job, is getting dirty. Sometimes I just take my gloves off and just start working the soil. And if you are stressed, you are de-stressed. I used to go keep fit. I don't go keep fit anymore because the park keep me fit, doing all those different things. You can imagine bending down and planting 100 plants, or 200, or 1,500 in one day. it's a lot of planting. You keep fit all right.
For Constantine, one of the key factors in turning the park around is that, like park keepers of old, he actually lives inside St Agnes, in the lodge.
It's still good to have a park keeper in the park during the day and permanent, and in the night as well. Those ladies see going on here, they both have my phone number. And if anything happened, they will give me a ring. If any noise or anything, or they even feeling sick, they give me a ring. All right, so it is important that I live here because it feels like I'm a part of the park. Not only a park keeper, but part of the park and a part of the community.
Constantine has a clear vision of how he would like to see the park used in the future.
I would like to see more activity in the park. I would like to see the schools come in and have classroom in the park during the summer. Bring some books or whatever about plants and teach the kids them how to take care of the environment. This is not my park, it's everybody's park. What I really want from this community and from everyone actually, that when I passed away, I said, well, can't they put some effort into that? I like to make a difference, and I hope I am making a difference.
This is the first public riverside park that's been built since the war. That's 60 years. It's striking, it's dynamic, it's beautiful, but it didn't come cheap. This park has cost a lot of money, but it's here now, it's here to stay, and it's a huge investment for the future. Thames Barrier Park was opened in 2000. Before being landscaped, it was an industrial site and the land was contaminated, so its new use was limited. Nothing substantial could be built on the site either, in case the Thames Barrier needed to be repaired. It's got all the areas you would expect in a park: the child's playground, the open spaces, the shady areas, the cafe, the wild gardens, the manicured gardens. But it's the way all those elements are put together that makes it so contemporary and so up to date. And it also works beautifully with the surrounding landscape. The Thames Barrier has been echoed in some of the planting here and some of the shapes in this park, and also the architecture of the buildings around as well. It comes as no surprise that it was designed by Alain Provost, who's the same architect that designed the Parc André Citroën in Paris. The similarities are there to be seen. Grass spaces for people to relax and sunbathe and read on, little garden areas coming off the main area with some really lovely planting. The water features as well. Kids love playing in those water features. There's one here, and they're on a huge scale over there in Paris. And what's wonderful is the way people use the park. Kids running everywhere, people relaxing. It really is appreciated. It's packed full. And what's interesting is that here in the first year, they got 8,000 visitors. Last year, they got 80,000 visitors, and it's set to increase even more. So it just goes to show, if you build a great park, people will come. It's a great setting, isn't it? But what's so successful about this park is the way it sits in its setting so comfortably against the stark modern architecture of the Thames Barrier and also the architecture around it. But it's a bit of a chicken and egg situation because the park was actually put here very early on to attract investment into this area for residential and business use. But it could be years before this area is fully developed, so funding this park until that day is the big question. With the rapid expansion of our towns and cities, it's great to see parks being part of this process of forward thinking. But are we prepared to make that financial investment in parks whilst areas develop around them? I think this is an inspired way of creating modern public parks and proof that they really should be at the heart of urban renewal. Is this the park of the future? It's the open day at Handsworth Park. Most of the restoration work has been completed. So 2 years and over £7 million later, what do people think about their park?
I think this is one of the best parks in England. It's really, really good. I've had many and many happy days in this park with my children. So I'll be coming back here again with my grandchildren now, not my children anymore.
I think they've done something which, you know, which somebody could stand there and say, yeah, they've done a really good job here and the money's been well spent.
Oh, I think it's beautiful. I really well chuffed with it.
It is very important that whoever is looking after it now are given the continuance to take care of this park and take care of the people who are using it.
One of the communities at the heart of this park is the cricket club. So what does this restoration mean to them?
This rejuvenation is a very wonderful thing, and I'm glad to see it. And I hope I can live and see a lot more of it.
There's only one Handsworth Park, and as people said, it's not just this century, but from time gone by. It's Handsworth Park. It goes together.
This park has got a lot of receptiveness, and people feel at home when they are in Handsworth and the park. So you're in Handsworth, feel at home.
So does the new improved Handsworth Park measure up to the original Victorian creation?
This is great, this is wonderful, we're so thrilled. But what we need now is lots of really good gardeners to keep it the same, lots of really good rangers to work with the local kids and so on. And that's got to be at least as important as just spending the money on the fabric. And what's so fabulous today, you can see, you're witness to the fact that this is one of the most multi-ethnic areas in the country, and everybody's here. And I just want everybody to keep coming in, because then it'll be safe and beautiful, and then the politicians will care, and the city will care, and there will be the money, and there will be the people who will look after it.
It's easy to see the economic, social and cultural benefits of restoring parks. But while everyone seems to be in agreement, how do we persuade people to put up the money to fund them? I don't know the answer, but I feel passionately that we all need to work together to find a way. And I think there is hope. Parks are rising up the political agenda. Everyone agrees we need to make our cities better places to live, and parks really can play a huge role in that. One of the many things I've learned on this journey is that parks can play a large part in reducing our crime rates. But this will only happen if politicians on a local and national level get involved. To me, parks are a key issue that they just cannot ignore.
Most people don't, in an urban setting, grow up learning that in their backyard of the parks they can rock climb and they can fish and they can enjoy the wildlife and the plant life. And urban people deserve that opportunity as much as anybody else. And so the question of how do you sustain it, you have to love it first.
The local authorities were, when I started, were the great patrons of horticulture, and that's moved away from them. I'm not saying that they can take the full burden again, but I think they've got to be seen as the places where these things are done and where people can build careers.
It's difficult enough nowadays, I think, with modern technology, and particularly people sitting at computers the whole time, difficult enough to stay in touch with what you might call real earth. And if our parks go, a lot of those people have no physical contact with anything that grows, be it a blade of grass or a tree, particularly people in inner cities and towns. If our parks go, then they are totally removed from anything green, anything growing. And that is the basis of our planet. Go up in a plane, go up in a helicopter and look down below you. There is so much green there. So many people are divorced from it, and our public parks are the one remaining final last vestige of getting people who don't have a garden of their own a chance to get out and in it. And if it just means taking their shoes off and walking across the grass, they'll be richer as a result.
Apprenticeships are essential, I think, for the industry. They're like the lifeblood. I think it's important that we put these people and these skills back into the system, and if every council did it, and used to do 30 years ago, then that replenishes the industry.
And if we don't tell anyone anything else from all the parks that we meet with, we tell them that don't bother to spend a cent on restoration of your park unless you come up with a management plan to maintain it and endow it, because otherwise it'll just revert back.
A park gives you absolutely everything, and you can't say that about many other public services.
I've learnt so much on this journey. I always knew how important my own local park was to me, but now I've learnt that everyone has their own special park that means just as much to them. At the start of this journey, I felt a sense of hopelessness. Our great British parks were declining and their demise seemed a foregone conclusion. But I was wrong. I've learned there is hope. There is a real effort to revive our parks, and that fills me with cheer. It's time to stop the rot once and for all by spending time in them, investing in them, and having pride in them once again. The pride that started all those years ago with the Victorians. Now, we're in a little bit of a strange state. We understand the value of parks. People are now getting into the use of parks a little bit more. But we need to invest. We need to really put a lot of more time and effort. We can't be complacent. We've got to throw money at this problem as well. You know, nothing comes for free. The expectation that we're going to rely on volunteers somehow or just, you know, everybody's good effort, it's just not going to happen. I now know this is a key phase in the development of our parks. Getting apprenticeship schemes up and running is essential to restoring the skills base of our gardeners and crucial in maintaining our public parks. We need more new parks too, places that will inspire and excite my children and their children's children. But the most important thing is that we learn from our past mistakes, and it's all about the involvement of the people. We now need to take it from here and move forward and be incredibly positive about these spaces. They're so valuable. They're here, they're open, they're available to everybody. We should be using them as much as possible. Everyone should be out in their parks on a great day like this. These places should be absolutely packed. Remember, your local park belongs to you.
From May 19th, your favourite garden shows will be replanted weekdays at 5 over on Home. That's on Virgin Channel 265 and Sky 246. There's more info at lovehome.co.uk. Next tonight, around the world in 80 gardens.